What is up, gang? Kevin here, Life22. I know I was going to do this the other night, and then I didn't end up doing it the other night. High CPU speed. Well, it's not clipping, so here's hoping. We reduced the bit rate to upload, so we're working with the laptop. We just gave it an upgrade, and we'll see. So, yeah, just want to touch base with you guys. So the other night I was going to do a recording of, or a review of the books, the book I just completed. If you follow me on Twitter, we just finished 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Recommendation thanks to Mr. Curtis Jackson, which is 50 Cent. I finished his book like a month ago, his second book, I believe, and he referred to it as, like something he read when he was younger, and I figured, hey, might as well, right? Everybody wants power. Power's a cool thing. It was a good book. It's definitely worth a reread. It is definitely a reread type of book. If you... there's a couple books out there that I've read, and I have to go back and reread them. One of the books is Raising Lions, and that's about raising kids. And the book is just really... The book is, it's a really good read. It's just, need a refresher. There's a lot to... It was a shorter book. This one was over 20 hours. To get the book the way it should be, there's just a lot to throw at you for 48 laws. I'm looking at a scale right here of all 48 laws in order. And some of his work is... Yep, and we got the kids barricading at the gate. Anyways, yeah, no, just to absorb all 48 and put them in practice to do better in life is, to get what you want in life, what you want out of life, things like that. It's definitely a reread. He covers over 3,000 years, gives life story examples of, lessons to be learned, people screwing up, people not screwing up, people getting, people succeeding and getting what they want out of life. Giving just perfect examples of what not to do if you infringe on certain laws he's put together that he's created. If you violate this law, here's an example of how it will come to bite you in the ass. And it's really good. Just trying to absorb it though. And obviously in order to get what you want, you have to be, and like he starts this off at the beginning of the book, it's like you have to throw away all your preconceived notions about, about morality. You need to, if you want to get what you want, you have to conceal your intentions, lie, make people think what they want to think while you get what you want. And it's a very obscure way of looking at it, but if you want to get what you want, if you want what you want out of life and you want to achieve those goals, you have to betray something, right? Now, if you're like, I'll never tell a lie, I'll never do this, I'll never do that, you might not get anywhere. You're relying on sheer luck alone, and that it's something hard to wrap your head around, I guess, to forsake one's values to complete an objective, and I think. Those are parts of the trials and tribulations of life, right? But then again, power and a lot of these different things are all based on the construct of man. And the construct of man has, is a thing. The constructs of man are, just that. They're just constructs of man, like almost everything. So, he based these laws based on the construct of human nature and how people perceive one another and how people act in most situations, how the outliers, the people that have achieved in this world, have manipulated those constructs and those human natures to get what they want, and he's laid it all out for you on how to achieve it. And it's just, there's a lot to throw at you. I mean, it's definitely a second or third read just to absorb it all. But I definitely think that this book, I mean, you take each law as you will, and as you may, and if you succeed, you succeed, but it's one of those, like, cold and calculating, and and it's, he goes into, like, Barnum and Bailey and Thomas Edison and all these other people, and like, knowing the true story, it just, it's eye-opening. And then there's other parts, like, he gets to that are very, like, in line with your morality, right? Like, pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered, right? So, like, a greedy fish, and I think that was towards the end, a greedy, nobody likes a greedy fish. Greedy fish get eaten. It agrees an off-putting thing. So, like, and then he talks about Yellow Kid Wilde, one of the great matchstick men, con men of his time, and how he used people's greed to con them out of what they cherished most, which was their get rich quick. That's the entire scheme of a lot of people, they want to get rich quick, and he used their lust for that to take money away from them, which he was almost a Robin Hood-esque type example in the book, even though he was a con man. But I mean, he never, from what I gathered just from the examples he gave, and I believe he mentions it in there, he's almost like a Robin Hood, right? He only took from people. He never took from people that didn't deserve to be taken from. So there is a vigilante, morality there to some of the examples he gives. And other people were, like, he gave a story in the middle of the book about perception, and how there's two miners. They were farmers from, like, a certain area, and they found a little bit of stone, a little bit of coal, a little bit of diamonds and jewels, and they essentially had a really amazing con on these investors that tried to pull one over on them, and they ended up being the ones that pulled the biggest con of all, and getting paid like $70,000 back in, like, the 20s for a diamond mine, and that was, like, equivalent to, like, a couple $1,000,000 now, you know what I mean? And it was like, and they were like, oh man, they got us, and they went out there and they realized that there was nothing there, and they didn't bribe anybody. They just used investment money that they kept being given the entire time for stuff to buy diamonds and jewels and plant them. And it was, and all those big Wall Street guys were trying to take all their money. It's one of those. It's a very good read. I think every one of these books, almost everything we do on this channel, besides the rantings, and even the rantings, when I do a rant, it helps me get shit off my chest. Helps me speak my mind and tell you who I am. So it's all about self-betterment, whether it's of me or it's of you. And if you follow along with me, then, you can probably better yourself, which is, I started reading these books. We do all these great things like, Fit February, and we didn't drink during August. It was all family August, and it encourages you to spend more time with your family. Back to school September started 3 days ago. So, really, it's just, and it's getting your kids ready to go back to school, get you cognizant of what matters, and that's their education. That's bringing them up to be better people, for you to spend more time with them. Just little reminders, things that, can better yourself. If you follow me on Twitter, that's pretty much a log of all the books I've read. And every time I read a book now, I'm doing a little bit of a book review. I was explaining this to somebody the other day. If you, when I go through and read a book, all of a sudden I gain the knowledge of that book, and then, or I interpret it, right? And then I keep going down this, a rabbit hole of books I've read. So when you have a conversation with me, you're like, where's this guy coming from? You know what I mean? But you don't have all those reading experiences that I do, plus all the life experiences, and plus how my brain is wired, right? But like, at least if we went down the same path of reading the same books, we might have slight life differences, in personal experience and how our brains are wired genetically and through those life experiences. But at least we can then have a conversation about the knowledge we've gained from these books, which betters you as a person. Each and every book you read, even if it's a book by something that is completely against your values, you can at least break it down, understand where the person's coming from, understand how it's flawed, or it might not. Like when I read Karl Marx's book, the Communist Manifesto. I was actually worried. I was like, great, I'm going to read this book and I'm going to turn into some kind of communist or something. You know what I mean? There was a little bit of fear in the back of my head. And then I read it and I'm like, oh, this is so flawed. I have all the different, like in my head, I know every single counter argument to these fallacies. And then I read Thomas Sowell's book about Karl Marx and Marxism. And he really broke down Karl Marx as a human being. And you can see where he's rooted in greed. And, he never said anything nice about people of any other colored skin or any other place than himself. So it was just, he was a bigot and a racist and a chauvinist, and he cheated on his wife, and he spent money like there was no tomorrow. And he's like, the government should have to pay for everything, blah, blah, blah. And it was a guy with bad spending habits. That's really what it was. And like, he had no fear. He was constantly in bankruptcy. He was constantly screwing people over out of money and all that other stuff. Like the same thing that most landlords are experiencing today with, tenants that don't feel they have to pay rent. It was just, it's one of those things. So just, I'm getting off the track of, this particular book review, but that's why we're here on this channel. So I'm reviewing this book. If you read this book, it betters you as a person. At least you can understand where some people might be, because you might not be out for power in this world. I mean, I think everybody at some degree is, because everyone's like, oh, I'm not selfish, right? Like, you have to be selfish, right? Then otherwise you would say, oh, I shouldn't eat because there's kids that are starving out there. Well, that's not being selfish, because you starved to death. Now you're dead. But nobody wants to starve to death. Deep at their core, they'll at the end of the day, most people don't put their lives on the line for strangers. I mean, they'll put them on the line for their own kids or their family or spouse, whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, they don't. They're always, usually most people are looking out for number one. You always try to cover, at least it's a thought, right? Like what's going on, I want my kids, I need help for myself and my spouse and this and that. And like, those are the, you're juggling a couple different things, but one of them is always selfishness. And so, I mean, even just as a matter of survival is selfish, right? Your instinct to survive is inherently where selfishness comes from, because you're trying to survive. But if you were to take that, that selfishness, and you say, well, I'm trying to survive, and somebody else could come at me with these power plays to take something away from me to make my kids, not have their college education anymore because they're trying to swindle me out of their savings or my savings or whoever's savings that's going to put them through, better their life, or maybe it's your retirement fund or whatever, you know what I mean? So you don't get swindled, even just, and you're not out for power, right? Like, but you still need to understand how people can come at you and take power, money, things you've worked for away from you to move themselves up. So, I mean, in that regard, you can still utilize this book. It's a really good read. So I do recommend it. I'm probably going to end up putting it back on the reread list, along with a couple other books that I've got to reread. But, I'm going to let this information soak in, just like putting on drywall mud. You put on one coat, you let it dry, you let it set, and then you come back through. You know what I mean? You've had time to critique it and, sand it, and then you reread it and apply that second coat. But thanks, guys. Comment below. Let us know if you've read the book. Let us know if you intend on reading the book. Let us know if you, like this podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Send us your hate mail. We love your hate mail. I always have to remind you guys that we love your hate mail because we love you, and even though you hate us, and some of you love us, and we love you back. But to all those people out there that hate Kevin Doherty, I want to remind you that we still love your hate mail, and you can't cancel me. So with that said, I have a couple other ideas for some videos that are going to be coming up shortly, so hopefully we'll get those banged out, and about 40 seconds shy of 15 minutes, and we will see you guys on the floppy